Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. We will begin in just a moment. We're just going to wait for some of our participants to filter in the next few minutes. Hi, and welcome, everyone. So glad that you're here to join us today. I'm Pamela Lavitt, the Director of Arts and Ideas and Festivals at the Strom Jewish Community Center, and this is our first program of our new season. We are so excited to have you here joining us today, and I just wanted to wish everyone a happy and a healthy and a safe new year. And we are between, of course, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and hopefully today with some of our Rosh Hashanah and holiday cooking themed programming. And we are so thrilled to have Honey and Company here for a cooking demonstration. But before we begin, I just have a few things to say about our upcoming programs as we kick off a new season. At this crazy time, we are going to be experimenting with virtual programming as well as some in-person programming. And we hope, obviously, that you'll help us get people to the Zoom and to our theater for socially distant, safe programming, because we do have some special events coming up. So I just wanted to mention a few events. I don't know if you saw the slideshow, but we are starting a virtual cinema series, and we kick off this month with an award-winning Israeli film that swept the Ophir Awards this past year, Asia. It is going to be streaming live from September 18th through 23rd. It stars Shira Haas. Many of you know her from Unorthodox on Netflix, as well as Shtisel. So she gives really a powerful performance. It is streaming for a full week. In fact, all of our cinema series this fall, next month, we have another Israeli film, Here We Are, for National Disability Awareness Month. And for one full week, you can watch it anytime. So please go online at sjcc.org/arts to learn more. For the foodies here, I did want to mention that Patty Yinich. Patty is now in her 10th season of PBS. She's the star of Patty's Mexican Table, and she will be with Adina Sussman from Israel. So we're very excited that this is the thing that virtual environments do bring us. But Patty will be doing a cooking demonstration on November 14th, which is a Sunday. And you can purchase tickets or purchase copies of Patty's new book, Treasures of the Mexican Table. But the name of our program, of course, is Patty's traditional family recipes, her Jewish Mexican mashups. So it is Treasures of the Jewish Mexican Table. So Patty's going to talk about her family history as well as her heritage and how she celebrated through Jewish inflections and Mexican inflections on Jewish foods. So we're really excited to have Patty here, and we wish that we could have her in person, but it'll be a Zoom event as well, and we would hope that you'll tell your friends. Finally, the other live event, and the only live event that we currently have planned, we're very excited to welcome back Mark Oppenheimer. Mark is one of the 3 editors of Tablet Magazine who appears with the Unorthodox podcast, who we've had live on a number of occasions, and he has a new book about Tree of Life Synagogue, both a story of the journalism that he did around the shootings, but it's mostly about the tragedy as well as the triumph of that community. That is on October 10th. It is live and in person. You will have an option to watch it virtually if you don't want to come to the theater. And Mark's new book is called Squirrel Hill. So without further ado, I'm just going to give you a little bit of business for today. This program will do a little brief interview and introduction of our guests, Sarit Packer and Itamar Srulovich. And then we will have a 45-minute cooking demonstration. The recipes for today are available online at sjcc.org/arts, and I will share that link in the chat as well if you did not download them. One of the things that the instructors will be doing also is you'll see there'll be 2 cameras. You can also throw questions into the chat anytime, and if they're relevant, obviously, we'll ask them during the cooking demonstration. These guys are very good at this. And if not, we'll have a Q&A afterwards. So I'm hoping that even though it's a small audience today, that we'll have a rousing discussion about this beautiful new cookbook, Chasing Smoke. So let me just say a few words about our guests today. And I'm so excited that they're joining us from London. And I appreciate, obviously, time difference being what it is, that they were up for it. It's their Sunday night and it's our Sunday morning. So we're so appreciative that everyone's here. They have been called the ultimate foodie travelers, and both chefs, Sarit and Itamar, their books are sort of these Hamish journeys filled with flavor and fire as they, in this cookbook, go to their favorite cities, collecting recipe stories and the best of culinary culture from the countries and the Levantine region. This cookbook, Honey & Co., Chasing Smoke, Cooking Over Fire and Around the Levant, features so many new techniques and family recipes from their tours all over the country. One of the things I loved about the book is how much they bring the sense of this travel and their tours and the flavors and the stories of cab rides and Uber rides. And it's just filled with so many rich stories. And I think that one of the things that this couple has often done is not only do they help us fall in love with food, it is comforting. It takes us on a culinary tour. It is no fuss fare, but they create simple, mouth-watering recipes for your family. I think one of the things that we'll be talking about today is what does it mean to cook over fire? Obviously, this is what the recipes today are focused on. Some of these home cooks that they discussed the book with were from Alexandria, Egypt, Amman, Jordan, Accra in Israel, Izmir, Turkey, Salonika in Greece. And for those of us joining us from Seattle, some of these places have deep resonance for us locally because of our Sephardic community here, which is the 3rd largest in the US. We have tremendous flavors in our own culture in Seattle from these regions, especially from Greece and Turkey. So I would like to please welcome our chefs to join us. If you would like to look online at their bios, I mean, these are impressive bios. Both of them have cooked with Yotam Ottolenghi. They've been in Michelin star restaurants. The story of their coming together as a couple is something that I hope that we'll have a chance to discuss. So please welcome our special guest, Sarit and Itamar. Welcome. So glad you're joining us.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. So I just wanted to ask you guys a few questions, because I've read so many things about you now, and I think that there's a little bit of unpacking. All lies. Well, they're quotes, so they're your lies then. But the one question I had, what I love about this book especially is how you talk about fire. And one of the things that you say in the book, and I'll quote here, it's in the intro, which is, where there's smoke, there's fire. And where there's fire, there's often people and stories, and something good is cooking. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think we're kind of like, you know, we all have these modern kitchen and we have very easy access to kind of very clean heat sources, but actually for generations of human existence, there was always this idea of, gather around the fire. And this is where you come for warmth and protection, but also for nourishment. It's also a place of hospitality. So it was really interesting for us to explore those ideas and to, see these concepts on the ground,
So fire is loaded, right? And you talk about it also Jewishly to some extent. You talk about Hanukkah, the bonfires of Israel, the image of the shores, and all of the bonfires during Lag BaOmer. So fire clearly has family import and resonance for you. So where did this book spark from? What brought you to bring fire from family and food together?
Yeah, I think truly for all of us as humans, we have these kind of reaction or intrinsic reaction to fire, to smoke, to those smells, to the warmth, to the heat and the light. It's something very, very intrinsic in the human experience. So we always loved this kind of food, the Middle Eastern traditions of, food cooked over fire. We always loved, those grill houses.
We grew up on them. It's a part of, like, growing up in Israel. It's a big part of how you dine out on a weekend. It's a big part of, like, family celebrations in Israel, usually Saturdays. Obviously, I'm assuming in America it's mostly Sundays, but Saturday is like a big day for the whole family together and to light a fire and to cook food. And it's about conviviality and enjoyment. And we always kind of had this passion to bring that back. And about 5 years ago, we opened our grill restaurant and we started cooking over fire again, for the first time in London. And we got this fancy extraction and stuff. And when we came to write the book, we thought, actually, we want to go back and we want to explore why we felt this urge to open this grill restaurant, why it was so important to us. We just wanted to see the region again, and we had left it 17 years ago. So we really wanted to
have fresh eyes and a fresh look, and really just to go back to the source and to try to, scratch a little bit more under the surface and see what is happening.
Yeah, and so if it's still used as much.
Yes. So speaking of going back to the source, so I understand that you both met in an Italian restaurant that you were working in Itamar, but neither one of you necessarily thought that you would be married or get married. That is something I read. That might not be the case in reality.
No, it's very true.
Very true.
I'm curious. I mean, I'm both
Speaking
curious.
Of fire, that was a slow burn, wasn't it?
Yeah, slow burn. Yeah, we
slow
refer
burn.
to ourselves.
See, there's your fire metaphor right there. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about just yourselves and introduce yourselves a little bit, both as a couple and how you came to both meet and fall in love and work with each other, because you have a unique relationship that Honey & Co. is two of you and much more.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about yourselves.
Yeah, so do you want to start?
Sure. I mean, we both grew up in Israel, but I left when I was straight after the army, and I came to the UK to study chefing, because all the interesting food was not in Israel at the time. It was in Europe.
It is now.
It is now. It's in Israel, yeah, but this was many, many years ago. And then at some stage, after working for quite a while at Michelin Star and all these crazy hours, I fancied going back for a bit and seeing my family and, like, reconnecting and seeing what was happening in Israel. And that's when I started working in this Italian place. Still, Israel was very much looking at food from elsewhere, not so much pride in local food at the time. And I started working in this Italian place, and a few months later, this kind of
amazing,
slightly beach bummy kind of lazy chef came in to work as well. And we became friends with the same group of friends. We used to hang out a lot, but we didn't really do anything. Like, we didn't think about it romantically for a while, but I think we got closer as time passed. And so then we just started living together really quickly once we decided it was, that's what we were doing. And then decided that we would go traveling. We're both chefs. We were excited by this prospect of, I have a British passport because my parents made Aliyah in the 70s. And so I had the British passport, and we thought, fine, let's get married and all of Europe will be open to us and we'll travel around Europe and cook. And we landed in London, and that was 17 years ago. We got stuck. Yeah.
We never really managed to take the next leg of the trip. We kind of like
Well,
stranded here, but we've
gone on plenty of holidays.
We've fallen in love with London. It's an amazing town, and it's been very good to us, I guess. And you said that Honey & Co is us, but actually it is so much more than just the two of us. We have kind of this amazing community of people working with us that, you know, it's made it their own as well, which is really, really special for us to see.
Yeah, and eating with us, you know, we've had some of the same customers from the start, so it's all very, you know, it's all very exciting. And then, so that was almost 10 years ago. We just started our 10th year of Honey & Co. That's our small kind of homey restaurant.
We had the first book came out a year after we opened, and then a baking book, and another book, and another book.
No, this is our fourth book. So yeah, 5 years later, we opened Honey & Smoke, and this was all about kind of these traditions, the grilling traditions, and probably closer to the first restaurant we wanted to open. And yeah, and now we're living the dream, you know.
Well,
so let me ask just briefly, and last question before we start is, you know, it's Rosh Hashanah, and honey is a resonant, you know, symbol for the honey and also the land of milk and honey. Tell us what honey means to you in Honey & Co.
Well, it's exactly what you're saying. We kind of wanted something that had a sweet connotation. I think it was quite important to us to, even though we were doing food, we wanted it to be about a kind of good, happy, clean feeling. We played around with sugar for a bit and caramel and stuff like that, but that didn't have kind of the same meaning, I suppose, to us as honey does. And yeah, like you say, coming from the land of milk and honey, a bit the fact that we use a lot of honey, a bit the fact that, you know, it's kind of a term of endearment for a partner. There's a lot of things that
also, you know, it's a natural product. It's always a local product, because honey, you know, bees, they travel 2-3 miles and they collect, you know, what they collect in the region. So it's always kind of like reflects the area where it is, and that was always very important for us. So yeah, it's kind of like there's some wholesome goodness in honey that nothing else quite captures. And I think this is why, you know, at the beginning of the year, we start with it, with honey, because it's such a potent symbol.
So let's go ahead and get started. And I love those stories, and I'm sure that we'll hear many more. But can you tell us a little bit about the recipes today? I'll share on the screen briefly what the recipes are, but can you tell us what you're doing? And then I'm going to step back and just let you guys do your thing, and ask that everyone who's joining us just put your questions in the chat, and this is an interactive, that's the goal, is to make it interactive. So tell us a little bit about what you'll be making today, and why, you know, one of these recipes is from Chasing Smoke, another one is from a previous cookbook. So tell us what cookbook that is.
So Sarit is going to make her famous cheesecake, which we serve in Honey & Co, and that's the recipe in our first book. And this is, I mean, you'll need to try it.
I'm sorry about that. Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It is, I don't know, pretty much everybody that comes to any of our restaurants has this dessert, because it's just so good. So
it's become a bit of a signature, which is why we're doing it, even though it was in the first book rather than our latest one. Also, it's a honey and feta cheesecake, so it's got this kind of twist of a slightly salty cheese. It's really delicious, and it's a kind of deconstructed cheesecake, so very nice when you're entertaining. You can get all the components ready in advance and then just serve.
And I'm going to make a grilled fig salad with nori cheese and a herby pomegranate dressing. That is a fantastic starter. It looks amazing on any table.
Very,
kind of
very
like,
Rosh Hashanah kind of happy salad.
We get such amazing figs, you know, this time of year. I know you guys in Washington State get amazing figs, so amazing produce.
Amazing produce. We were there with our third book a couple of years ago, and we were so jealous of your farmers market. The little, we had such a lovely time. We just like bought loads of stuff and cooked loads of things, and it was fun.
Well, a little later,
We'll
I'd
be-
love
we'll
to
be
ask.
back.
Yeah, I'd love to ask a little bit more about your connection with some Seattle restaurateurs, obviously Renee Erickson. And of course, you know, her restaurants are right in the middle of one of the best farmers markets in Ballard here. So let's go ahead and take it away. I'll step out for a moment. You'll hear me as the sort of voice in the background, but please welcome, and we look forward to seeing how you do what you do.
Sure.
Sure. You want to start?
Well, we can start with just making a quick dressing for this pomegranate salad. And Itamar's going to chop some hard herbs. So when I say hard herbs here, at the moment I'm talking about rosemary and thyme. They're very robust. They've got loads of flavor. But you can also use sage.
Hey, you guys, your sound dropped out for a moment. We can't hear you. Can folks on the Zoom chat throw in the chat? Can you hear them? There you go. You're back again. Yep, got you again.
All right.
Go ahead.
Thank you. That's weird. Don't know what happened. So we're using robust herbs. I'm just going to repeat in case I wasn't clear. We're going to use quite robust herbs, rosemary and thyme, because we're going to grill these figs on a griddle pan, or you can of course do it on the barbecue if you've got a barbecue going. What happens is they smoke and they caramelize and they go super soft and delicious, and they can really take a punchy dressing. So using these hard herbs, chopping them up fine, mixing them up with pomegranate molasses, which is kind of sweet and sharp and tangy and really, really fresh. It should always kind of just be, if you can, find one that says 100% pomegranate juice, just reduce down. There's a lot of different types out there. We give it quite a good amount, and we season it up with some salt and pepper, a bit of olive oil, just to kind of create a beautiful dressing. And the dressing can be made in advance and sit there. And the grilling of the figs can happen slightly in advance if you want to. Even though if you can do this as you're serving, it's absolutely delicious, because the warm figs, the warm cheese, so special, and it makes for a really beautiful centerpiece. The olive oil goes in as well, and then I'm just going to prep some pomegranate seeds, and the pomegranate seeds here just kind of add a beautiful color. Of course, they look like little jewels, and they add a nice zing of freshness. It works really well. In case you don't know, this is the season, the ultimate season for pomegranates, so they're absolutely beautiful at the moment. You should always look for ones with the crown as much intact as possible, and then just slit around the crown with a sharp knife, just to remove the crown. And the crown should just come off, and then slit along the ridges. There's like kind of high ridges that you just want to trace your knife along the ridges, so that you can just pull it apart. We never tap a pomegranate with a spoon. It's something we don't believe in doing. We like to keep all those like beautiful jewel-like seeds as intact as possible. Itamar's also added some chopped chili, some green chili or red chili, whichever one you want. And you don't have to do it, but it really can take some strong flavors. And then as you pull the pomegranate apart, all the seeds should just pop out and drop into your dressing. And that's what we want to do here. That gives our dressing. And a bit of fresh mint. I'll take that away so Itamar can chop some fresh mint. So this is all the dressing. So it's a very simple dressing, but actually what we're trying to show is that these dressings work really well for lots of other preparations. So actually
this is a little, sorry, this is something that we picked up in southern Turkey in our travels, where they use this kind of like combination of herbs and pomegranate syrup and mint and chili. And you can dress, this is so delicious with so many things. So you can use it for, you know, fish on the grill or in a pan, like something like salmon and mackerel that's very, very rich. You can use it for lamb or chicken or something like that. In Turkey.
They also dress like a tomato salad with it, just beautiful seasonal tomatoes chopped up. Dress it with this dressing, and it kind of really pops all the flavors. And this is like the base in like big kebab shops. You will get it always on the side with all your salad bar, and you kind of take a wrap, put a kofta kebab on it and salad, dress it with this like really sharp pomegranate dressing. It's a really great, great trick. And when we use it here with the figs, which is so kind of juicy and sweet, and then this cheese, which I'm going to show you, You probably don't need a whole pomegranate here. About the seeds of half a pomegranate is plenty for this dressing.
Depending on the size.
Depending on the size of, no, don't you know this? Each pomegranate is supposed to have exactly the same number of seeds.
I don't know if that's true.
This is the biggest thing in Jewish religion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Taryag seeds, yes.
Is that true? I don't know.
I've never sat there counting, but it's supposed to be that each pomegranate has exactly the same number, isn't it? This is a traditional Jewish thing. Anyway.
I think if there's one person who should know, it's you. You've done so many pomegranates.
Yeah, but I've never sat and counted them. Anyway, that's our dressing. So very nice and simple. The mint goes in just last minute. So we're gonna have it here ready to go. And then you can set that aside until everything else is ready. It looks, just gonna show you, it's quite a thick dressing, but you want it to just kind of season everything up and just set it aside.
And I'm gonna do the figs and this cheese on the grill. And this is, we're using Manuri cheese, which is Cretan? Cypriot, sorry. Which is made from a blend of cow's milk, goat's milk, and sheep. It's kind of like halloumi cheese in that it bakes really well, it takes heat really well. It can go on the grill and not melt or lose its shape. But it's not as squeaky as halloumi. It's kind of like very, very creamy, very fluffy. When you heat it up, it's almost got this kind of like custardy, quiche texture. So I have my trusted griddle pan here.
Got some oil there.
And I'm just gonna very, very lightly, I'll do the figs first. Very, very lightly oil the figs.
So I'm just gonna half the figs. We're gonna lightly oil. If you're doing it on a barbecue, you don't need to oil it very much. There's much more heat. Just a very, very light oiling. And here on the griddle pan, we're gonna just give the open face a bit of oil and straight onto a hot griddle pan. I'm going to move our little camera to that side so that you can see everything.
Yeah.
Is that enough figs for you?
Yeah.
So Sarit and Itamar, that was one question that I had, and I'm assuming others will as well, which is the techniques for grilling. And if maybe you could just, many of us in the US have barbecues, or we have grill pans and we make, pancakes on them. So, we're not as diversified perhaps. One of my favorite images from the book is an old stainless steel sink that someone sat out in the backyard to grill their food in. And there's so many beautiful images with grilling outdoors. So what are some of the techniques that you would recommend, or the tools that we would need to grill?
So mostly, I'm just going to move one camera on to have a look at the grill. We use anything. Basically, we use a source of heat. And that source of heat, we want some kind of grid on top, and we use that. So in this case, what you're seeing in the back here on the camera, and we can probably sneak the cheese in there if you cut it in half at the same time. What you see on the camera is just a griddle pan, a very classic cast iron, very strong, heavy bottom pan. And on any kind of heat, we only have electric at home. So it absolutely works on electric. If you have a gas one, use it on a gas. And this kind of gives you a good simulation of what a barbecue would be like. It's not exactly the same. It's going to get quite smoky here. It always does. Our fire alarms always go off. It might go off soon. We'll try not to. But that's a good way in a London apartment or any kind of apartment to recreate these kind of smoky flavors. But when we're cooking outside, any kind of vessel that can contain wood or charcoal that you can ignite, let it flare up and then mellow it down, and then put some kind of grid on it. And that grid can be anything. It can be an old like cake cooling rack if it's metal, or you have a proper one that's made for the grid, anything like that. You season it slightly so you get it really hot, and you get, we tend to use half an onion. You cut it in half, put it in a bit of oil and rub it along the grid parts. And then you use that, but also a lot of places in the region we were traveling, especially in Turkey and Greece, just use direct heat. So open like a bathtub, an old metal bathtub, fill it with charcoal, use long skewers and use direct heat. You don't even need a grid on anything.
We're both professional chefs. We love a kitchen gadget. We love to have all the time to get all the thing. But actually, when it comes down to it, we don't really need that much. you can have kind of like the will to get it done. And then and then the world's your kitchen. So people we all sing a wheelbarrow or oil drum in Jordan, the bedrooms that posted up. They were digging a hole in the desert and just burying fire there and so really you get so much done with very little. It's just a matter of nothing's getting the fire, nothing's getting it done.
So guys, I'm just flipping all these figs and the cheese on the griddle pan. We just want to give them a bit of heat, a bit of kind of smokiness, and this comes off naturally from it. And that's really all there is to it. I've only set the griddle, and this is quite important, and I forgot to mention before, is you set it on a medium heat. When you have it on when you set it too high, then all you're doing is burning. What you want is to get some smoke happening. And then all you need to do is just let the heat kind of do its own thing. And as soon as the heat is doing its own thing, and I'm kind of on a medium heat, so here on an electric stove it means number 3, but I mean it means something different in each kind of in each place that you look. I'm going to bring the pan over forward, and we're going to bring the camera back so that you can have a look at everything, and then we can assemble this.
So one of the things that you talk about in your book is, that these aren't necessarily super complex recipes, but there is a primality to them and the sense of science and art to grilling. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about how we as home chefs can get a little bit of an understanding of the magic of grilling?
I think the main thing you want to remember is that you're using heat to create smoke and create extra flavor. So we tend to use a lot of fruit and veg on the grill, probably more than we do a chicken. I mean, of course, we like a chicken, we like a fish on the grill. I'm not saying we don't, but the magic happens when you're using ingredients that are quite,
maybe,
I don't want to say boring, but quite day-to-day, like grilling a cabbage, grilling figs, grilling cheese. What it does is it creates something that absolutely wasn't there before. A piece of chicken is delicious, whether you roast it in the oven or you do it on a barbecue or in a frying pan. In each way, it's really nice. But what really happens is magic when you're kind of using these little tricks, using heat as a source to kind of create smoke, but also create caramelization, dehydration. And it's not, all our food is quite simple, it's about these tricks, it's about these dressings, it's about what brings it together. But it's not about like any magic. We're not using any kind of sophisticated equipment here. We don't have any kind of crazy grills that close and have temperature gauges and smoke in kind of any crazy way. Everything is really about accessibility and about day-to-day use.
Yeah, and I think, we always when you go to a barbecue, it's always about the little things. It's your mayonnaise, the little sauces, a little something on the side, a little dipping sauce. So we try to cram as many of these things in the book as possible. We have this dressing that is very versatile. We have our chili garlic dressing that works amazing on everything. And I think, find your 2, 3, 4 marinades that you like and 2, 3, 4 dressings that you like, and then you're sort of good to go. That's kind of like your magic springing fada. So I'm just going to finish this here so you can see it plated. And then you can use tongs, you probably should, but you have, asbestos fingers.
Definitely use tongs.
Or maybe I'll use
I've got a fork.
this spatula that I have, just to get the cheese. And I'm just going to get the figs on the plate. The cheese, you can break it very roughly. And again, if you don't find this Cookery cheese, you can use halloumi. You can use feta cheese as well, but you may need some, it goes really well on the grill, but you always use baking paper. And just going to get the dressing on top.
So beautiful. I think what's really nice is that this looks like a celebration on a plate. Like whenever you kind of put fresh herbs and pomegranates and you have the fresh fruit, it's such a welcoming kind of, you know, you're presented with that, you're so happy. And I think the other thing to kind of try and explain is that when you're doing a barbecue, if you're setting it, you want to plan a bit, you want to plan an event out of it. It's not about quick fixes, you know, get it done really quickly, eat in 20 minutes. That's not what a barbecue is about. The barbecue is about
Nothing wrong with that.
No, but that's like a different kind of thing. But getting a quick kind of dinner that, look what you're doing. The sliding salad. So this is, yeah, it's a really beautiful salad, and it's lovely to present that, and it will sit fine if you want to kind of do it before and present it. But if you're happy to spend a day on the grill and you grill a couple of things and they come to the table, it's beautiful, warm, you eat that, then the next thing goes on. It's all about like celebrating food. And, you know, in the Middle East, it's all about abundance and about layers and about, there's always something else coming off the grill. Yeah.
Another vegetable or another little thing.
There's always something else.
Since this is the primary recipe from Chasing Smoke, maybe in a moment I'll share some of the images from that as you're prepping for the cheesecake. But you know, part of your book is influenced, like you said, by the stories and the smoke and the fire that you found in various places. So is this recipe particularly inspired by anything in your travels?
I mean, like I said, this dressing is almost everywhere where we were in southern Turkey and Adana, a simple dressing like this would be everywhere and season everything. And adding the cheese to it was just a natural progression, and the figs, of course, you know, these are actually figs from Turkey, so
it just makes sense.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
And the grilled cheese is prevalent all throughout Greece. There's always like a piece of grilled cheese going on, usually with just a local honey drizzled on top and a bit of thyme. So we're kind of taking a few different traditions here, mixing them into one plate that makes sense to us on a sensibility of kind of flavors and textures, and yeah.
So your book definitely is redefining. The word Levant is not a word that many of us in the US are familiar with, right? With like the region, the Levantine region, and you go in your book to many places. I'm curious to know if there was a particular place that really inspired you as chefs, and if there were places that you felt you couldn't go, that you wanted to go to. You were in Alexandria, Amman, Jordan, and one of the, I'll share a quote, but I love one of the quotes, which is from your friend in Jordan, said, "Every land is a holy land, every people are the promised people," as you're viewing over the hills of Israel, Palestine at that moment. I thought that was an incredible moment where you as tourists and foodies are seeing the connections, and everyone feels that they are promised people, you know, a promised land. So I'm just wondering, how did you tour these different lands, both as Israelis, and also what did you feel you had access to? What did you not have access to?
I mean, I would just say I cannot overstate how welcome we were everywhere we went. We did not, you know, thankfully, we didn't encounter any hostility, just welcome.
And we did tell everyone where, yes.
And it was fantastic. It was also really, really interesting. And this may sound strange and very kind of subtle, but as you grow up in Israel and you're not quite connected to the region in your psyche, you're very much looking west. You very much feel like you're part of Western culture. During these travels, it just kind of brought it home to us how much we share with the region that we grew up in, how much of the temperament, the sensibilities, all of these things that, you know, bring us together, that really, really brought it home to us.
And Jordan was a special place from that point of view, because it smelled like home, it looked like home. I mean, literally for me, it's just, you know, kind of across from where I grew up in, just outside of Haifa, between Haifa and the Galilee, and the part we were at in Jordan, it just looked the same. It smelled the same. It was everything that that I remember growing up. And then, you know, visiting and spending time with Ramsey. We had a beautiful guide there, Ramsey, and he was originally from a family of Palestinians that were kicked out in '48, and we discussed a lot about politics, about where we all grew up, about what happened. And we decided early on that we were going to be very honest about where we're from and what we are interested in.
But also we did, it was important for us to see and to shed a light on the things that were in common and the things that brought us together. And there's so many of those, so much more than the things that keep us apart. And that was really enlightening to me.
It was beautiful to see. I'm going to get the bases done for the cheesecake, if that's okay, guys. I'm going to use, and this is a big part in where, when we're talking about countries we didn't go, we really, really, and still would really love to go to Aleppo in Syria. Sadly, at the moment, that's not possible because of the situation there. But again, one of the reasons that our travel is possible always is because we have British passports and we try to make the most out of them if we can. But a big inspiration of the Middle East is in this recipe by using this pastry. This is kadaif pastry. And in case you haven't used it, it's used a lot in kind of all the baklava making, all these kind of nests and rolls. And it's a really, really beautiful pastry to work with and especially to eat. So all I do for these bases, and this is what I said before, is a deconstructed kind of cheesecake. I pour some melted butter on top. I've just melted a bit here in the pan, just enough to kind of moisten the pastry a bit. And I'm going to toss it with a bit of sugar and create kind of these nest bases that will be the base of the cheesecake. And then they get baked. And this would be the same process that you would make for a baklava. You kind of get the pastry, douse it in butter or ghee, clarified butter. Samna it's called in Yemen and stuff like that. You toss it around until it's very well coated. And then if you were doing a nut filling or anything like that, you would flatten it out and roll it. But we're just going to do loose freestanding nests. Just going to divide it into kind of 4 different nests here. And then we bake it. So it's a very simple pastry to use. You don't want to overwork it or overcomplicate it. Just pull it out into these kind of very rough nests. What it does is it crisps up and it keeps a really beautiful texture to it, which is what I absolutely love about it. And that's all there is to it. You make these nests and you pop them into an oven. I'm going to bake at 170, which I think is like 350 Fahrenheit, for about 12 to 15 minutes, just until they're golden brown. And there's some I've done before because I didn't want you guys to wait.
So I know, Sarit, you've mentioned on a number of occasions that, things like pomegranate molasses and Ceylon and the kadaif pastry are much more available than they used to be. And in Seattle, I just wanted to mention to people, there's an incredible Middle Eastern grocery on Aurora Avenue called Goodies, where you can buy most of these things. But can you speak to watching as these become so available in around the world? What does this mean?
I mean, I think, in London, they call it the Ottolenghi effect. I assume maybe it's the same in America. But when we moved to this country 17 years ago, getting things like za'atar, sumac, these pastries, even pomegranate molasses, we would bring back suitcases of stuff. But now, actually, you get much more here than we ever did back home because
and much better quality as well.
Yeah, higher quality, because the borders, it's an international city, obviously, London. And I think probably, sorry, there's a big police car truck coming to get us. I think, I'll give it a second.
But it's fantastic to see we have such a global ladder to choose from, not just the Middle Eastern produce. So many more things are available. And here in the UK, I don't know what it's like in the US. When we moved here, like pasta and rice, they were in the international food aisle.
Yeah, it was. But I just want to show you, this is just 3 types, different types completely of pomegranate molasses we have. Each one is from a different country. There's a Greek one, a Turkish one, and an Iranian one. Each one does something slightly different. And this is a variety we didn't grow up having in Israel. This is like special, like we're kids in a sweet shop now. You can get so many things that you couldn't get before. Each one of them slightly different, same product used in different kind of ways in different recipes. So that's exciting as well to see all of that.
So Linda asks a question. She said, and just to be clear, is this pastry available in stores as is, or can you also, or do you have to cut it from like a fila dough or something like that?
No, so this pastry is available as it is. It comes in this shredded form, like I'm holding up here, it looks, Itamar hates it when I say this, but it looks like a bunch of hair or like a kind of white wig. It comes like this, but if you can't get hold of it, and definitely you can mail order it, and it freezes really well because it's literally a very, very simple batter of flour and water. Freezes really well, so you can buy one pack and divide it into a few and freeze them. But if you can't get it, you can buy phyllo, roll it up really into like a really kind of tight log and slice it as thin as you can. And it does do a good job at replacing.
Yeah.
It's not the same, but it's still really delicious.
Yeah, what you really want from this is the kind of the crunch and the sweetness. And the phyllo, like shredded phyllo, will do that, but this is so much finer and so much more delicious.
And these are the ones we baked, and they stay quite fragile, but also firm enough to lift and to put on a plate. And what's really nice is that when you stick your spoon or your fork in with this cheese cream that I'm going to make, or cream cheese, cream cheese, it just all works together. There's no resistance. It just stays really crunchy.
For the mix.
For the mix, guys, we have a full fat cream cheese, and then equal quantities of a double cream. Here it's called double cream. I think for you it might be called extra thick cream. I can't remember now. I think it's extra thick cream for you. That all goes in together. I'm putting a bit of feta, and I'm using a feta cheese here that's like a soft, salty, brined feta. Any feta will do, but this is a creamy variety of feta, so it breaks up really easily. I just crumble that really roughly in there.
Yeah, but you don't want the kind of really long-aged feta. You want something.
No, this is about a younger,
fresh,
a younger, fresher one.
Does it matter if it's a cow's milk, a sheep's milk? Does it make a difference?
Well, I think feta is definitely in this country, it's DOP. So you can only call quite specific things feta, and I think it's sheep. But I play around with it, you know. I think you want something that is not very, very funny, something that is quite salty but delicate in flavor. So sheep can work, cow.
But also something you enjoy. The main thing here is the salt, isn't it? Like it's about getting a hit of salt, because I'm going to also use a bit of icing sugar, what you call confectioner's sugar in the US, and a bit of honey to mix it. Then you want the cheese. It's going to give you something that's the exact opposite, you know. It's something that really kind of makes everything pop. And I'm just using a beautiful local heather honey, but again, any honey that you like. And in the restaurants we use thyme honey, which is really beautiful, very fragrant. I'm going to put some vanilla pod. If you don't know how to use a vanilla pod, just flatten it between your thumb and finger and just slit. I'm not going to use a whole one because this is only a small recipe. I'm going to use about half. Slit it down the middle, and then using the back of your knife, you can just scrape those beautiful seeds out, and they just end up on the back of your knife there. And they're so full of flavor, and the smell is absolutely amazing. And absolutely do not discard this pod. Yeah, this is, apart from the fact of it being really expensive, especially now, this will season any sugar. It will make any jam really delicious. So absolutely keep the rest of that, even if you're using the whole pod in the cheesecake. That's it. Those are all the ingredients. And all we do now is just cream it together until it comes together. If you're making a big batch, you can do it in a mixer. But the important thing, if you're doing it in an electric mixer, is use a paddle rather than a whisk. What you want here is to cream everything, but not whip it. If you whip it, the whole texture will collapse.
You don't want to get air into it. You just want to have a good sort of texture.
Yeah, and when you're doing such small amounts, I'm only doing 4 here, then just creaming it just like this with a spatula until it all comes together. And you want those little lumps of feta. That's kind of where all the delicious stuff happens.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a relief, it's, you know, and a variety in texture.
That's all it is. The simplest recipe, the most effect. So that's our cream. We just grab a plate to show you. I always use a tiny bit of the cheese mix underneath. This is just to kind of make sure that my base sticks, so that when I carry them to the table, it doesn't slide around, it doesn't fall. Yeah, exactly, no floating. And then a nice big scoop, oops, a bit loose formed. We don't work on ceremony here. This is about a very natural look. We always add a bit of a fruit. So peaches work really well. Again, figs would work really well. I'm going to add a bit of blueberries.
You don't want anything too sharp or anything too.
No, this is about comforting and juicy.
Yeah, just like when you need a little burst of freshness there.
A sprinkling of some salted almonds. And this is back to this nod of baklava and everything that is nutty and roasted and delicious. A bit of fresh oregano or marjoram, or again, a bit of thyme. And this brings back to that kind of mountainy and like all these flavors that we absolutely love. A little drizzle of honey on top. And that's it, we're done.
Amazing. So let me ask you a few questions about just food photography, because obviously both travel, the book Chasing Smoke has incredible photography in it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, it really does. But I'm curious to know, like, you know, so many cookbooks have come out where there's personal stories, there's images. What's the balance for you in making this book? Because there was also entree to families and back, you know, you were going to restaurants, and some of it honestly seems like one of your cab rides. You know, you wound up with a cabbie that said, go to this restaurant, not to this restaurant. And you knew where you wanted to go, but they wanted to send you elsewhere. So how much of this was planned? How much was spontaneous? Because there is a spontaneity to it, but yet the photography is clearly so amazing. So somebody else was traveling around with you and had to plan as well. So tell us a little bit about the process of making Chasing Smoke.
So it was really, it was really important for us. The cookbooks that we love are the ones that, you know, really have a voice and that you really get to meet a person, know a person. So it was really important for us to have that in the book. And we didn't want to be overly planned. We didn't want to be very researched, but we couldn't just land somewhere and go with it. So we did a little bit of planning, and we wanted to leave a lot of room for, you know, experience. And we had the good fortune of being very, very good friends with our photographer, Patricia Neven, who's just incredibly talented. This is the fourth book that we're doing together.
And she does all our financial planning work with us.
We you know, together, so we work together really, really well. So it was easy for us to travel together and sort of point her attention into something that we thought was interesting. And oftentimes she would point our attention to what she thought was interesting. And she has a photographer's sort of skills in connecting with people and going into places, which we've learned so much from. So it was very much a collaborative effort.
It was. I think what we kind of tried to do is capture moments. So she came on 5 of the trips with us that are recorded in this book, and then capture moments, and then also do a full week. We did one full week at my parents' house with family and friends coming over to eat, where we wanted to recreate specifically some of the dishes again, and to kind of do our own versions when it was our own version. So some of the pictures are literally from the restaurants we were at, or at people's homes, or outside, and some of the photography we all cooked again and sat together and ate in the garden. You know, all my nieces and nephews, bar one, are in the book, and friends of ours are there, and we just wanted it to feel very approachable and very natural, and just like what you do, which is eat and celebrate and enjoy good weather, enjoy good company, enjoy beautiful food. And hopefully that came across. And because Patricia is such a good friend, she knew what to capture and what's important to us as well.
Well, I'm curious to know a little bit about the stories of the guides that brought you through so many of these countries, and how did you kind of advance, connect, and find these, how much research went into choosing where you were stopping? Like you said, some of it was spontaneous. The photography and the things that I do love are the backyard cooking. I mean, that's what I love about some of the images in the book, and some of the beautiful faces of people so proud of their kebabs. And there's a incredible pride that comes through in the local culture. So how do you as chefs tour a country with, you know, honest, I'm going to say Hamish, even though many of these places are not Jewish, but people that are so proud to share their food with you? And what does it mean for you to bring it back to London and to share it with people there?
I mean, we were very lucky. I think kind of the area that we work in, food, is a very, very supportive community. And it was very easy for us to find people to connect with, through social media and through connections. Everywhere we went, we were like, oh, there's this guy who's the son of this lady who's an amazing food writer, and I know, and I'll put you in touch. And we go and we have lunch and we kind of grow from there. Or this guy used to work with this chef that we used to work with, go to his restaurant, it's, an hour's drive, and then we meet like that. So this is kind of our community, and this is our world. And we just sort of, the minute we put the word out there, so many people just wanted to get involved with this project. And that was really incredible. I mean, the people that we met, I think we made friends for life that we would never otherwise
meet. And I think that they were so excited to, like you say, this pride in what you make and how you make, and in your city and your hometown was so obvious with people. They just wanted to share more. And as soon as you meet one person that shares something, then their friend comes over and shows you something else. And we just kind of went with the flow, really. We were just interested in, there's nothing that doesn't interest us. I mean, we did focus very much on cooking on fire here, but we also saw so many other things. I mean, we cooked so many pastries and we tried so many salads, and we just wanted this book to be very focused, but people were just excited to show and to share and to eat with us. And we were so amazingly lucky in Jordan. We ended up at a house. We made mansaf with the woman of the house, the matron of the house. And mansaf is a traditional Jordanian dish, which they're so proud of, and like the whole family just gets bubbled with excitement about making it, and everyone gathers, and it's a big table, and everyone's ripping pieces off and stuff. So, we were lucky to do the whole gamut from like home to like proper massive grill restaurants that were feeding the crowds at Ramadan at sunset when the food comes out, and you're like talking hundreds of plates of food going out within the space of 2 hours to feed, so many people.
And then when it came to doing the book, to actually assembling the book, it was crucial for us to showcase these people, these traditions, and to do them justice and to honor them and sort of repay that hospitality.
Amazing. Well, I mean, I just have a couple questions about maybe then your connection to the chef community. In Seattle, we've been lucky to have quite a few Israeli chefs that have been on tour. Hopefully you'll come next time in person. Obviously, both of you have worked with Itamar Ottolenghi. And also we've had Adina Sussman and Michael Solomonov and Einat Admoni. And I think also that I recall, Itamar, maybe reading in some of your family background that sort of Yemeni cooking and other places were part of your family history. But what does it mean now to be part of this community? And perhaps it's an unfair question because maybe you're arguing in some of this book that food is a secular, equalifier, right? It makes everyone equal. We can sit at a table together. But you're speaking about your chef community as well. How much is the Israeli chef community part of your community?
I mean, I like to think that, very much so. We've met when we were with our last book, we met with Mike Solomonov and Einat, and it was amazing because, you could see kind of like the same source material going a slightly different way. We had so much in common. And it was so interesting to hear about their experience, and we learned so much. It was very interesting as well to talk to, we have our podcast, which is
just won an award, yay!
Just won a massive award. Where we talk to the people that we're interested in the food world mostly. So we got to talk to people like Rim Kassis, who's Palestinian, to Sami Tamimi, and to see these differences. So I think what is happening through food and media and culture is incredible and is unlike any other sphere at the moment. It's such a common table for all of us to sit around and share our knowledge and our personal experiences. I think I'm very proud to be taking my small humble part, our small humble part in that. Absolutely.
Well, what you've also done, I think, with this book in particular, is that you've found a place that is honest, approachable. Your hospitality comes through, and other people's hospitality. I honestly think for many of us that have a lot of these authors' cookbooks, this Chasing Smoke, I I couldn't believe how excited I was to start cooking over a fire. And maybe one of my technical questions for you is, in the back of the book, you do talk about some techniques, you know, tongs and this and that. You talked about the grill. But if we wanted to start, despite the drought, and you're not supposed to have fire in your backyard here in this region, what is a way for us? What's the simplest way for us to start cooking with coals? This is not a familiar American milieu. Coals used to be, you know, your dad and the hamburgers in the backyard. So how do we shift our thinking to align with this book so that we can be prepared to make tea over hot coals, just like you do in the middle of a, you know, a wooded area? But I don't want us to be intimidated by it. I really want to embrace it.
I think for me, and I wrote that part at the end because when we opened Honey and Smoke 5 years ago, and we set up these grills and we had this big fantasy, I realized I haven't actually lit a fire to cook on ever, really. You know, my dad would do it, my brother would do it. And even though we would have, my husband, of course, but even though we would have like fires so many weekends of our lives and every holiday, I had never done it myself. So this is the reason I wrote that, because actually 5 years ago is when I started playing. And this, you know, even though I'd been a chef for almost 20 years, I'd only cooked on equipment that someone has like calibrated and set for me and stuff like that. So, but you do fall in love with it. It's absolutely not intimidating.
Now she's a proper pyro.
Yeah, now I'm a pyromaniac. But you know, you have to like embrace the joy, embrace the time, have some patience. Using a charcoal or wood that is local to you is always the best way, and piling it and a bit of kindling and just letting time do its thing. Basically, wood and charcoal, they want to catch fire. You don't have to fight it too much. You just need to have patience. You know, this is why you have like drought alerts, because sadly, these things really want to catch on fire. So, and then once the fire is lit, of course, you let it burn up, you let it do its thing. That's when you sit and it's all beautiful and you see the flames, but it is absolutely not when you cook. You cook after it's mellowed down, when it's all glowing and beautiful, and you have kind of this like light, it's called like the white ash that starts to mellow, and the red glow. And you just gauge it. You gauge it with your palm, not directly above, about 10 centimeters above the grill. If you have to pull it away straight away because it's too hot there, then the fire is probably a bit too hot for cooking. But if you can kind of hover your hand above for like a few seconds, you know, okay, this is quite high temperature, 10 seconds is like medium temperature, 15 is quite low, and you just treat it the same way that you would treat a hob. There is no difference, except the flavor is so much better.
Yeah, I think the main thing, like Sarit said, is just be patient. You know, if you want to get dinner on the table quickly, we have a lot of technology for that. You can put something in the microwave, you can put something in the oven. The idea of using charcoal is to spend a day. You know, you want to make a little bit of a ceremony around it. So, you know, take your time. Don't stress.
Great. So last question is, when can we see you in Seattle? And I know that you've had some collabs with Renee Erickson. I don't know what that relationship is. Just bring it home to Seattle for us. And then I put in the chat for everyone. I just want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank the both of you for your beautiful recipes, your beautiful book. I wanted to let people know that they can still purchase it if you want to email me, or I did put the Amazon link. But, you know, you can email me as well. Tell us just a little bit, is there a Seattle future for you?
I mean, we're aching to come back. We've lost so much of our heart in Seattle. It's such a gorgeous town. Lovely, friendly people. We've made so many friends. Such delicious food. The produce, I mean.
And we were so lucky, like Renee cooked a meal from our book at Sea Salter? No, what's it called? Westwood. Which was absolutely amazing location, amazing food. And then we went to eat as well with her, which was such a treat. And of course, you know, Booklarder, there's such a community around cookbooks and events. And, you know, these people are friends. Renee's coming next month. We're going to go eat.
And actually, our oldest friend in London is from Seattle.
That's true, Bridget, our lovely Bridget. She runs our deli. Yes.
So we feel like we have a family connection in Seattle for sure.
Amazing. Well, we can't wait to see you here. I just wanted to thank you, Sarit and Itamar, for your time this morning. Please, everyone, join us for our next events. Go to sjcc.org/arts to learn more. And finally, just go get a copy of Chasing Smoke so that you can catch fire, you can share stories around the Levant. And please, everyone, have a safe, happy, and healthy and beautiful new year. It's been such a pleasure to have Honey and Company join us. Thank you all for coming. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.